Tough loss for the Bulls yesterday, and that first half we looked good. Kobe White was on fire. But Bulls fans, y'all were driving me nuts on Twitter because everybody on Twitter was bitching and complaining. They were like, why are we winning? Why can't we lose? Why can't we tank? You guys got to knock it off. It's shameful. It's embarrassing. Stop begging for losses. We are locked into the 10 seed. The Chicago Bulls are making the play-in tournament. They are locked where they're at the 10 seed. They are locked where they're at the lottery. So shut the fuck up. Stop complaining. Stop whining for losses every day. Look at the standings, man. The Philadelphia 76ers, they are 2 games behind us. They have way more incentive to tank than the Chicago Bulls. Their pick is top 6 protected, going to OKC if it falls out of the top 6. The worst case scenario for the Sixers is to get 7th or later, and in a stacked draft, send that pick to OKC. You have a disaster of a season, and then you don't even get to keep your first round pick. That would be one of the worst seasons we've seen in modern NBA history. The Brooklyn Nets, they're 3 games behind us right now. They're not catching us. They had a nice little month last month. They play hard. They're well coached. They caught a lot of teams by surprise. Teams have figured it out. Teams are now showing up against them. They've lost 4 in a row. That's probably going to continue for the rest of the year. The Raptors, they're, 5 games behind us? They're not catching us. The Raptors fucking suck. We just beat them the other day. They're not catching us. You look out west. We're not losing more games than the Jazz. We're not losing more games than the Pelicans. We could lose out the rest of the year, lose every single game, and we are still going to be behind those teams. And then on the flip side, we're probably not winning more games than the Spurs, and we're probably not winning more games than the Blazers or the Suns. So there's no teams lottery odd-wise that by making the play-in, we're going to pass. And there's no teams by losing out the rest of the year that we're going to pass in the lottery odds. So we're locked both ways. So why does it matter? We're making the play-in tournament. We might as well go into the play-in tournament with a little bit of momentum so we don't get embarrassed. A real-life example that I will use for you guys. About 2 years ago, I won this regional jiu-jitsu tournament, and it qualified me to go to a nationwide jiu-jitsu tournament. Now, I'm decent at jiu-jitsu. I'm a brown belt. I've been doing it forever, but my jiu-jitsu is very MMA based. I spent 10 years as a professional fighter. I don't have that technical, straight up tournament style jiu-jitsu. This tournament that I got invited to by winning this invitational, it was all black belts. It was all killers. It was all guys who are just straight up jiu-jitsu killers. So I had 2 choices. I could turn down the invitation. That'd be fucking embarrassing. I could show up and get my ass whooped. That'd be embarrassing. Or I could show up, not train hard, get my ass whooped. That'd be even more embarrassing. Or I could train my ass off and put up a good fight. So trained my ass off, went to the tournament. I didn't win the tournament. A black belt got me in a heel hook, but I had pride in it. People were like, damn, dude, that was a good match. You really gave that dude a run for his money. That's what the Chicago Bulls need to do in the play-in tournament. They're outmatched. They're out. Everywhere on the court. You look at the teams ahead of them. That first game is going to be Atlanta. Atlanta, they're hit or miss, but the Bulls usually have good luck against them. They'll probably beat them in that first game if I had to put my money on it. Then you look at Orlando or Miami. I would hope that we would get Miami because Orlando has way more talent. They've just underperformed. Miami looks like a mess ever since the Jimmy Butler trade, even before the Jimmy Butler trade. But against either of those teams, we're going to be outmatched. So for people who are like, well, man, we should just tank, we should just lose, blah, blah, blah. I would rather, as a fan, I would have a lot more pride in my team if they showed up and played their ass off and, didn't get fucking embarrassed out there. That's my attitude on it. We're going to be in the play-in tournament, so we might as well go into it with some wins, go into it with some momentum, go into it with Josh Giddey playing good, Kobe White on a hot streak, Buzelis looking comfortable, Go into it, make a little bit of noise. If we make the playoffs, great. That's awesome. If we make the playoffs and it's a first-round exit, that's cool with me. A lot of people be like, well, it's pointless to make the playoffs and get swept. I don't feel that way at all. If we make the playoffs and we play the same team, the number 1 seed, the Cleveland Cavaliers, 4 times in a row, that lets Modest Buzelis, a guy who we all think is the future of this team, that gives him a chance to see what it's like in a playoff atmosphere, to see what it's like when you play the same team 4 times in a row and they get to make adjustments after every game, to see if you can overcome those adjustments, if you can show them new wrinkles to the game to try to still be effective. So I take a lot of value in a play-in tournament. I put a lot of value in a first-round playoff exit. I look at the Bulls that I kind of grew up with, the Bulls in my high school days when they had Kirk Heinrich, Ben Gordon, Luol Deng. They were making the playoffs. They played the Wizards one year. They got waxed. Then the next year they came back. They beat the defending champion Miami Heat. I put stock in that. Those early career playoff ups and downs that prepared, Luol Deng to later on, in the 2011-2012 postseason for him to step up and play good when we got Derrick Rose and Carlos Boozer and Joakim Noah. Prepared Kirk Heinrich for later playoff games in his career. Ben Gordon, he had that huge 2009 postseason. Part of that is because he was already used to the stage from those earlier postseason appearances as a young player. So I put a lot of stock into it. I don't think that if you get swept out of the first round by a superior team like the Cavaliers, that your season is a bust, especially the ups and downs that the Bulls have had this year. So I'm not saying that I think they would win the play-in tournament. I'm just saying they're 100% making the play-in tournament. And I would like to see them show up and give effort and not get fucking waxed out there and not get embarrassed. So all the people on the timeline right now who are begging for losses, who are begging for a tank, you're wasting your breath. You're just wasting your breath. The tank, if we were going to tank, it needed to start at the beginning of the year. The Bulls are too far ahead in the standings to miss out on the play-in tournament now. So we're locked into the 10 seed. We're locked into that lottery spot. Like I said, we're not going to lose enough games to pass any of the teams below us, and we're not going to win enough games to pass any of the teams ahead of us. So we are locked in both ways now. So why not root for a couple more wins? Why not root for Josh Giddey to play good and have some momentum going into that game, or for Coby White to finally kind of find that rhythm he had last year and go into the play-in tournament with a little bit of momentum and on a hot streak. Modest Buzelis yesterday, that was a fucking great game by Modest Buzelis. One of the things that I loved was we saw a couple of nice passes from him, some playmaking passes. He hasn't shown that in his game yet. He had 3 yesterday that were top-level playmaking. So if he continues to add to his game, he continues to grow. Why wouldn't I root for him to see what he can do in a high-stakes environment like a play-in tournament, like a playoff appearance? Keep in mind with Buzelis, he played in the G League last year, so he doesn't have any real experience in high-stakes basketball games. He didn't play in the NCAA tournament. You know, Coby White's played in the NCAA tournament. Josh Giddey, he's played in playoff games and play-in games with the Thunder, so he knows what it's like to play in high-stakes games. But you look at this roster, Buzelis doesn't have any experience in high-stakes basketball like that. So there's a lot of value in getting him in some high-stakes basketball games like that down the stretch here and in the play-in tournament. So that's my little rant for the day. It's just been driving me crazy, man. Every Bulls game, you guys are just begging for them to lose, whining when they're winning, talking about tank commanders and blah, blah, blah. Like, come on, guys. Have some decorum. Be for real here. It's basketball. We play to win the game. You can't tell Billy Donovan to coach to tank. That's just not how it works. He's not going to purposely play bad players. And on the flip side of that, you can never tell players to play to tank. You can't tell the Javon Carters of the world, the E.J. Liddells of the world, the Talen Horton-Tuckers of the world. Talen Horton-Tucker, I don't like him. If you follow me on Twitter, you guys know that. But this is a guy who he was pretty much out of the league. The Bulls were the only team to offer him a contract, and they didn't do it till like a week before the playoffs. So he knows this might be the end of his career. So when he gets minutes, he's going to go in. He's going to play his ass off. Javon Carter, he knows that he might be nearing the end of his career too. He might be looking at an overseas career. So when he gets minutes, he's going to play his ass off. E.J. Liddell, he's going to play his ass off. In some of these games, it comes down to who is going to play harder. So even if you're rooting for them to play players who normally aren't in the rotation, I promise you those players who normally aren't in the rotation are going to come in and play their fucking asses off, and that's going to throw a whole wrench into your tanking. So there's no such thing as coaching to tank. There's no such thing as playing to tank. The only motherfuckers that care about tanking are people on Twitter. I'm telling you, nobody else cares about tanking outside of the guys who are actually in the building, the guys who are playing the games, the guys who are coaching the games. They don't give a fuck about tanking. They don't give a fuck about lottery odds. They want to do the best they can this year. So that's my rant for the day. You guys let me know in the comments how you feel about it. It's driving me nuts, man. Every Bulls game, I got hundreds of people on the timeline whining about tanking, and it's driving me nuts.